This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good Friday afternoon. Thanks for checking in. A weather washout for the long Memorial Day weekend. ABC News meteorologist Lee Goldberg gets us started.
Widespread rain right through the weekend. And once we get into Sunday, some breaks from Baltimore to Buffalo. Into Memorial Day, the rain shield is broken up a little bit more.
Goldberg says Memorial Day Monday looks to be the pick day of the weekend. Expect drier, warmer conditions then. The NASCAR world still mourning the loss of driving icon Kyle Busch. The future Hall of Famer had been hospitalized with a mystery illness after abruptly pulling out of this weekend's Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte. It was the first time in over a decade that Busch missed a Cup Series race. Fellow driver Casey Mears.
Kyle was a once-in-a-generation competitor. He had that next level talent. He had something special, something that was just a little bit better than everybody else. And what he was able to do on the racetrack was just unbelievable.
Jay Berman with Fox Sports says Kyle Busch was one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR history.
His fierce competitiveness led to the nickname Rowdy. He won 234 races across the sport's 3 national series, more than any driver in history, including 63 in the Cup Series.
Busch is survived by his wife, Samantha, and 2 children, an 11-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. Kyle Busch was just 41. A massive fraud scheme has been exposed in Minnesota. 15 alleged scammers accused of stealing $90 million in taxpayer money that was meant for children and the poor. The owners of several daycares and Medicaid clinics are among those facing charges.
Fraudsters treated Minnesota-run programs as their personal piggy bank.
Colin McDonald with the U.S. Attorney's Office says the suspects behind the fraud are now behind bars. Dr. Mehmet Oz runs the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare.
The 15 arrest is a very important symbol because it's a shot across the bow. I'm telling you, if you're a fraudster, do not walk away from this press conference. Run, because we are coming after you.
Autism and housing assistance programs also fleeced by the massive fraud in Minnesota.
This was not a paperwork error. It was not a technical violation. This was organized theft that exploited the most vulnerable children in America.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. There's growing concern over the president's plans to provide payouts to political allies who claim they were unfairly targeted for prosecution by the Biden administration. Some of the January 6th rioters could receive taxpayer-funded compensation. GOP Senator Thom Tillis is not cool with that.
These people don't deserve restitution. Many of them deserve to be in prison.
He calls the fund stupid on stilts. Several Republicans worry the nearly $2 billion anti-weaponization fund could cost them the majority in the U.S. Senate this fall. Why did they lose in 2024? Big question mark there. Democrats have released the findings of their presidential election autopsy report. Avery Harper's the political director at ABC News.
The Democratic Party needed to invest more in reaching out to Latino voters year-round, to working class voters, to more rural voters, and that it needed to invest in a media strategy that really reaches voters where they are, not just through traditional means like television ads.
Conspicuously left out of that 192-page report was former President Joe Biden's cognitive decline.
We lost the last election. It wasn't close, but the fact that we can't even tell people why, we're too afraid to tell them the truth. They know the truth. They saw the debate. They saw what happened, right? And they saw that we got killed in the election. We lost every swing state. So they can write whatever document they want, but Democrats know why we lost.
That's Florida Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz. Secretary of State Marco Rubio at a NATO meeting in Sweden today, trying to reassure nervous U.S. allies about the war in Iran.
There's been some slight progress. I don't want to exaggerate it, but there's been a little bit of movement, and that's good. The fundamentals remain the same. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon.
Iran and Oman are discussing today plans for the ships that are currently stranded in the Strait of Hormuz. Chanley Painter with Fox News.
The Strait of Hormuz remains a sticking point as Iran reportedly negotiates with Oman to set up a formal tolling system for the vital waterway. The president, though, doubling down on Project Freedom.
We have total control of the Strait of Hormuz, as you know, with our blockade. The blockade's been 100% effective. Nobody's been able to get through us like a steel wall.
And with gas prices hovering over $4 a gallon heading into the big holiday weekend, the president promising that they will fall sharply once the war ends.
The fight against the fires continues in Southern California. Luke Chapa lives in Simi Valley, north of L.A., where the Sandy fire is about 30% contained.
When you have to leave something that, you don't know what to take and everything, it doesn't matter anymore. You just get yourself and your wife and, maybe a couple of pictures, and that's it. The rest of it, it's replaceable,
Evacuation orders are in effect for nearly 20,000 residents. SpaceX scrubbed the highly anticipated inaugural test flight of its upgraded Starship V3 mega rocket last night. It is the tallest and most powerful rocket ever built. The launch postponed in Texas due to a hydraulic issue. They'll try again tonight. SpaceX hopes to be able to land astronauts on the moon by the year 2028. Hard to believe, but CBS News Radio will cease to exist after today. CBS's Tony Aiello.
It's the end of the radio network infused with the DNA of Edward R. Murrow.
Hello, America. This is Edward Murrow speaking from London.
CBS News President Tom Cebrowski and Editor-in-Chief Barry Weiss saying it was not an easy decision. A shift in radio station programming strategies, coupled with challenging economic realities, has made it impossible to continue the service.
There's no constant except change, as we all know.
New York News Radio icon Rich Lamb says it still hurts. Before the internet or TV, CBS News Radio brought the world to American homes, carried on 700 affiliates.
This was so important, I think, as a sinew that connected the nation together. It was part of your life.
It leaves a huge gap in the field of news.
Allison Keyes took listeners to Lower Manhattan on 9/11.
I can hardly breathe. It looks like a nuclear war happened here.
They lived up to the Murrow tradition. CBS News Radio. Good night and good luck.
That's Tony Aiello with CBS News, America's longest-running newscast. First went on the air March 13th, 1938, and it signs off for the last time tonight at 11 o'clock. Still to come on the Noon Report for a Friday. Faster internet in Pennsylvania. New York lawmakers take on ICE. And water safety tips for summer.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. The Memorial Day weekend is here. I do wish the weather news was better, but we'll spell things out in your forecast. That's up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Thank you. Let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. The Memorial Day weekend marks the start of boating season, and experts say you need to play it safe out on the water.
Watch the weather. These are basic concepts. Stay alert, know your surroundings, know the water conditions.
Oneida County, New York Sheriff Robert Mashel says water safety begins by taking personal responsibility.
Continuously pounding this message into people's heads about, being safe, not drinking and not operating your vessel, always wearing your life jackets, always having your safety equipment. People get the message eventually, and that's our job, is to help people at the end of the day.
Mashel says 500 to 600 Americans die in recreational boating and watercraft-related accidents every summer. A new initiative in Pennsylvania takes the guesswork out of picking the college that's right for you. It includes a data dashboard that breaks down college costs for prospective students.
There has never been in Pennsylvania an opportunity for the public to look at a range of foundational information about the higher education sector.
Dr. Kate Shaw, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Board of Higher Education, says the data collected on this new website will
allow us to begin a conversation based on information and evidence, as opposed to anecdotal information or speculation.
The data dashboard also looks at how many students are going into different careers. careers and how many job openings are in those careers. You can find the data dashboard at pa.gov. Just type in State Board of Education. As recent college grads enter the job market, many are expressing concern about their chances of landing a job. Emily Rosenbarker is a 2026 graduate of SUNY Broome College in Binghamton. She tells WBNG,
"It's definitely frustrating. With the job market continuing to get smaller and smaller, it is becoming a lot harder for people who are just out of college to find new jobs."
A new Forbes magazine survey shows just 30% of 2025 college grads and 41% of 2024 college grads have entry-level jobs in their fields of study. The New York State Legislature's just passed a bill that restricts local police cooperating with ICE. That bill would prohibit immigration raids without a judicial warrant and prevents federal agents from going into jails to make arrests. Southern Tier Republican Assemblyman Phil Palmisano argues the new limits will endanger law enforcement. There's been another death at the Marcy Correctional Facility in central New York. That story from Family Life's Sarah Harnish.
Troopers responded to the state prison May 16th after 45-year-old prisoner Terry Demonstoy was found unconscious in a bathroom. He later died at a hospital. Police say his injuries were sustained during an altercation with another incarcerated individual. Last month, the New York State Corrections Officers Union warned Governor Kathy Hochul the State Department of Corrections is in a full-scale, quote, systemic emergency following a surge in violence, contraband, staff assaults, and deaths. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
Thank you, Sarah. The Marcy Correctional Facility has faced scrutiny in the past. An inmate there died 2 years ago after being punched and kicked by COs. That incident was captured on video and drew national condemnation. Several officers involved are now serving time. The Marcy Prison is a medium security facility some 7 miles west of Utica. Thousands of rural Pennsylvanians could soon be logging on to faster internet service. Family Life's Brian Query.
Pennsylvania can now move forward with more than $700 million in federal broadband funding after officials resolved a dispute tied to state labor laws. The money will help expand high-speed internet access to roughly 130,000 homes and businesses still without reliable service. Most projects will use fiber optic cable, though some areas may receive satellite internet instead. The state now has 6 months to finalize contracts, with providers expected to complete expansion projects within 4 years. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. This year's fruit harvest may be lacking in Pennsylvania. Late April freeze has devastated some crops. Orchards report losing nearly all their peach and cherry harvest. Damage also significant to strawberries, apples, and pears. One western Pennsylvania farm even canceled its annual strawberry festival next month because of low supply. State officials estimate crop losses statewide could exceed $200 million. The names of 300 soldiers who died in the Revolutionary War are now on display at the Bradford County Courthouse in Towanda, Pennsylvania. Officials say this commemorative plaque
is an opportunity for young and old alike to re-engage with the ideas of patriotism and being good citizens within our community.
Bradford County Commissioner Zachary Gates telling WENY,
"It's particularly special for me because my great-great-great-great-grandfather, Oliver Gates, is one of the individuals listed on that plaque."
How about that? Gates says the plaque lists the soldiers by name and the towns they are from. He adds while the service members died close to 250 years ago, this plaque will ensure they are never forgotten. Sports next, it's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the Cleveland Cavaliers' strategy was to leave Josh Hart alone and not let Jalen Brunson dominate again. Brunson didn't go crazy, only scoring 19 points, but he did dish out a playoff career-high 14 assists. And Hart, who had been benched in Game 1 in the fourth quarter and in overtime because of shooting just 26% from three-point range, found his rhythm in the second half in Game 2. He knocked down a pair of three-pointers early in the third quarter to help ignite the Knicks on an 18-0 run and blow the game open. Hart led New York with 26 points, knocking down 5 3-pointers in all. All of New York's other regular starters scored in double figures. New York now up 2-0 after the 109-93 victory. On the ice, the Montreal Canadiens handed Carolina their first postseason loss this season, pouncing early and scoring 4 first-period goals. The Canadiens rolled from there with a 6-2 Game 1 victory. To baseball, the Blue Jays went with a bullpen game, and it worked as 5 Toronto pitchers held the Yankees to just 3 hits. George Springer hit a home run in the 7th. The Jays split their series with New York, winning the game 2-0. Bo Bichette drove in both Mets runs on a single in the 3rd inning, and that was all they needed. Mets 2, Nats 1. In St. Louis, Braxton Ashcroft struck out 9 over 7 innings of 1-run ball, and the Buccos beat the Cardinals 6-2. Brandon Lau hit a home run. Marcell Ozuna drove in a pair for Pittsburgh. Other winners, the Guardians, Athletics, Braves, and D-backs. And finally this, the racing world is stunned after the sudden passing of 2-time NASCAR Series champ Kyle Busch. Busch had 63 Cup Series wins. The man was only 41 years old. That is a look at sports.
One of the all-time best, too. Thank you, Randy. And still to come on this Friday edition of the Noon Report. Wet and cool to start the holiday weekend. The Capital Connection crew and going postal in Flat Rock, Michigan.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Years ago, after visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., sociologist and civil rights leader Bob Woodson wrote about a display that he said, quote, "Stop me in my tracks." The 1980s were, according to the exhibit, years of paradox. While many blacks pursued advanced degrees and entered the professions, others existed in poor neighborhoods filled with drugs and violence. So who or what was to blame for this stark contrast? Well, according to the museum, the answer was Ronald Reagan, because he cut too many social programs. Woodson, who founded the Woodson Center in Washington, D.C. to, quote, empower low-income communities to solve their own problems, did not buy that take. Is it truly institutional racism and heartless policies that resulted in the conditions today? He asked. Well, on Wednesday, the Woodson Center announced that Robert Woodson, a recipient of the MacArthur Genius Fellowship, a Presidential Citizens Medal, the Freedom Leadership Award from Hillsdale College, and the 2018 William Wilberforce Award, among many other honors, had died at the age of 89. As the center wrote in their announcement, and I quote, "From his early days as a civil rights activist to his decades at the Woodson Center, Bob built a body of work that reframed how America thinks about poverty, race, and community. He stood steadfast for the nation's founding values and virtues, including faith, hard work, personal responsibility, the foundational importance of healthy families and communities, and the ability of everyone to shun a victimhood mentality and become agents of their own uplift. He's left behind a generation of leaders, revitalized neighborhoods, and a civil rights tradition centered on the people it was always meant to serve. He didn't just build an organization. He built relationships, and those relationships built a movement," end quote. Well, Woodson questioned the dominant narrative about race and oppression and instead championed innovation, entrepreneurship, personal responsibility, and family as the key to economic empowerment and community restoration. In fact, the 2018 Wilberforce Award ceremony featured academic luminaries, political heavyweights, and former leaders of rival gangs, all honoring what he had accomplished. And Woodson didn't just talk about these ideas. He put them into action, founding the Center for Neighborhood Enterprise, which became known as the Woodson Center. The best way to help the poor become self-sufficient, he believed, was by placing control of community development not in the hands of faraway bureaucrats, but in the hands of community leaders. And so Woodson Center programs spread all over the country, including the Violence-Free Zone, which sent young adult advisors into schools to mentor youth. At one Richmond, Virginia high school, arrest of students dropped 38% after adopting a VFZ program. A Dallas high school that recorded 133 gang incidents the year before bringing in VFZ reported 0 the year after. Woodson Center programs transformed the lives of former drug addicts, prostitutes, and the homeless. According to Bob Woodson, the secret to his success was that faith in God transforms the inside, and that faith transforms the outside. Well, the faith of Robert Woodson that brought so much transformation to both the inside and outside for so many has become sight. Please learn more about the Woodson Center mission, vision, and programs at woodsoncenter.org. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. And for more resources or to share this with others, go to colsoncenter.org/radio.
Thank you, John. Outside next, weather where you live with meteorologist Kevin Williams.
Here is your Family Live forecast. The call for this afternoon, fading sun, high temperatures into the 60s. It'll be cloudy tonight. Rain will develop in Pennsylvania. It'll reach New York tomorrow. It'll end up being a soaking. It'll turn chilly and breezy as well. Low temperatures tonight, 40s. High temperatures tomorrow at best 50s. Then on Sunday, warmer. Clouds, a few scattered showers, but there could be some sunny breaks too, high into the 60s and low 70s. Monday, Memorial Day, clouds, but some sun. A couple of scattered showers with high temps in the lower 70s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. It is Friday, folks. Congratulations. You have made it. And this is the Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are Jason McGuire with New York Families and Dan Barkowiak at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Let's jump right in. Jason, another budget extender. I think that we're up to 14 now, and the New York State budget is now officially over 50 days late. Have you ever seen so much dysfunction when it comes to the budget in New York in your years of working there?
I do remember one budget that went well into the summer months, so it could be worse than it currently is, but not by much. There are 9 budget bills that have to be passed for the budget to be completed. And what's interesting is there is one bill that moved Wednesday this week, and when that bill passed, it was done through a message of necessity. It did not offer any public input on what was in that bill. Now, legislators are coming back next week to pass more bills. They could have just as easily passed it next week, but for whatever reason, there was a need to pass it before anybody could see what was in it.
Yeah, I know Governor and the legislative leaders are not making a lot of friends in Albany these days. They want to get out of Dodge by June 4th. Not sure they're going to make it. This week in Pennsylvania, a big challenge to that awful ruling that happened last month. The Commonwealth Court finding somewhere in the state constitution a right to what they call reproductive autonomy. Not sure what that means. Dan, the Attorney General Dave Sunday is challenging this ruling. What happens next in this court battle over taxpayer-funded abortions?
Yeah, and this is certainly an important case to watch. I appreciate our Attorney General. The responsibility of our Attorney General is to defend current laws, and Dave Sunday has taken on the defense of this case, and it's a position that the state holds that there's no taxpayer funding of abortion. And frankly, look at the abortion industry. The abortion industry continues to put profits over patients, looking to harm women, and so I'm thankful that there are officials like Dave Sunday taking on the challenge of the abortion industry and trying to protect taxpayers from paying for abortions.
Jason, if President Trump was a baseball player, he'd be batting 1,000 right now. In the GOP primaries, at least, all of his endorsed candidates have emerged victorious. New York's primary isn't until next month. But in your opinion, would it be wise or foolish for Republican candidates to hitch their wagon to President Trump?
Well, I think it depends on the district. There are districts where it would be very helpful, and there are districts that are a little more challenging, that maybe are a little blue-leaning or very difficult for a Republican to hold. And yet we see the president coming to Suffern, New York, to speak alongside Representative Michael Lawler today, making comments there in what is a very difficult district. And so Mr. Lawler must see something in that district that indicates that the president's presence in that area will help him in his reelection effort.
Yeah. Whether to run to or run from the Trump agenda. In Pennsylvania, all of his candidates won back on Tuesday, Dan. I thought it was interesting. The gambling lobbies poured a lot of money into 3 GOP races in particular, $8 million, and in all 3 of those races they lost. What does that say about gambling in Pennsylvania?
Well, I think it's a reminder of gambling and really these addiction-for-profit industries in our state. I think of over at the Capitol, the marijuana industry. The number of lobbyists at the Capitol have certainly increased. And when you have this election that just happened, the 3 Senate primaries, $8 million+ that were poured into specifically Senate races, you just saw the inundation of this gambling industry that was trying to get their way. And what I'm thankful for, at least in those states, many got frustrated. You certainly saw so many of the ads, but still many went out to the polls and did their duty of going to vote. And so I'm thankful that many made their voices heard, despite the noise, despite the special interests, and it's a reminder really of what is needed come general election too.
Well, Jason, in a couple of months, the era of doctor-assisted suicide will become a reality in New York State. I think early August is when those suicides can begin. We've talked at length on this show about the dangers of this. It's now here. What concerns you the most when you think about this so-called Medical Aid in Dying Act? And how did we get to the point where state-sanctioned suicide would become a reality in New York?
I think most immediately what concerns me is with assisted suicide, there's just a loss of hope. The first time you sit before a doctor and you hear the word cancer and you're giving a difficult prognosis, you assume the worst. And frankly, often doctors give a very stark scenario. And yet once you can get beyond those initial days, you begin to see there is a hope. Every day there are new treatments that are coming out. But with assisted suicide, you lose hope. You just see an easy exit. You see a way out of the pain and the fear of the moment. And I think that's what worries me about this particular initiative is how people are going to be grabbing onto that. And that's also partly how we got here. There is a fear of dying in our culture. We worship personal choice. And so we see people that are choosing the path of personal autonomy. It's my body, my choice, rather than submitting to what God's will is for a person's life. And as we move further and further away from a Christian worldview, we're going to adopt these ideologies that run contrary to the sanctity of human life.
Dan, I want to bring you in on this as well. I don't know if you saw the interview that Dr. Ben Sasse did on 60 Minutes recently. He is dying of pancreatic cancer, and barring a miracle, he won't live to see his 14-year-old son grow up. He won't get to walk his daughters down the aisle. But yet he's teaching the nation a very valuable lesson on dying with dignity. How does this worldview that Dr. Sasse espouses contradict those who push for doctor-assisted suicide in states like New York?
Every listener needs to search for those interviews of Ben Sasse if you haven't heard them already. And it's countercultural, exactly what Jason's talking about, really the loss of hope. As a believer in Christ, I think of the hymn In Christ Alone, as Jason was talking, no guilt in life, no fear in death. Ben Sasse is living that out, and it's amazing to see the witness that he's had, not running away from the Lord, not even running away from the spotlight that he's had. And he's stating the sovereign God, he wouldn't want someone that's simply just answering yes to all of his prayers. And just the realness that Ben Sasse is presenting in the midst of such a diagnosis and how that can draw you closer to God, to need his presence, to need his truth in your life.
All right, then finally, guys, let's talk about school choice and why it matters so much. Jason, school budget votes happened earlier this week. I think 96% of districts approving their spending plans. But few states spend as much on public education as New York does. But studies have shown math and reading scores continue to plummet. How do we right this ship and make our schools more accountable with the tax dollars they receive?
Yeah, in New York, we're averaging about $37,000 per year per student. We have districts who are spending over $50,000 per student, and yet our reading and math scores are plummeting. I think what you have to do is introduce competition to the market. Right now, there is no competition in the public school market, or very little, I should say. And the teachers' unions, the education unions here in New York are trying to strangle that school choice initiative from happening. And so really, when we have things like the federal tax credit scholarship program that will will open up better educational opportunities for more students. That may be the path to success for education in our state and the nation.
And that's a great segue to you, Dan. This week marks the 25th anniversary of the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program in Pennsylvania. Why is this program worth protecting and expanding in the Keystone State?
Yeah, I remember I was standing at the Capitol for a school choice rally, and I remember a young student that had received an EITC scholarship standing up in front of a podium and saying how this saved my life. Really, school choice works, and I echo everything Jason's saying. Here in Pennsylvania, this EITC program, hundreds of thousands of scholarships have been given out over the last 25 years, and so many families have been helped. But also this past year, nearly 70,000 students were turned away from receiving that scholarship because there's a cap on the program. And so it highlights the desire for families looking for options. We absolutely here in Pennsylvania as well as in New York, the majority of students in public schools, they're not at grade level for math and reading. And so I think if we just continue to do the same old what we've done before, and we shouldn't expect to see better results. And so obviously we need to introduce competition. We need those options, and families and students are asking for it. So the more we can do on that front, the better we can have for families.
All right, that'll be the last word this week, but a lot of places we went. If you have questions about any of the topics discussed on today's program, or you simply would like to learn more about the Pennsylvania Family Institute doing a great work in Harrisburg, Dan, where can folks find you online?
PAFamily.org.
And stay informed on all the issues in Albany as well. Lots to discuss there. If folks want to learn more about New York families, Jason, where can they find you?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
All right, great job, guys. Capital Connection comes your way every Friday during the Noon Report. You can also catch it online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org. And finally at noon today, going postal in Flat Rock, Michigan. An Amazon driver apparently reached her limit this week in the middle of her workday. Not only did she quit in the middle of her workday, she also threw a bunch of packages that she was supposed to deliver all over the highway. Must have been quite a day. This homeowner notified police about the truck driver temper tantrum.
We just had an Amazon delivery, but we're pretty sure the Amazon driver maybe just quit her job, but she threw, there's cartons and packages all in the road in front of our house, so I don't know if that's something you guys come take care of.
Yeah, they take care of that, says Police Chief Steve Mickenjack. He says his top deputy sprang into action.
So I had him have the officers divide them up, and they went, knocked on the doors, and delivered them.
All told, the cops delivered some 20 packages to homeowners that were scattered all over the highway. The packages were, not the homeowners. All in a day's work for the Flat Rock, Michigan police force. Way to go, guys. And last we know, no word on what caused that Amazon driver to check out mid-shift. Hope she's doing better today. And that's our world, the world we live in. Friday, the 22nd of May. Have a wonderful and safe holiday weekend. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at FamilyLife.org.